Schönen guten Nachmittag nach Österreich and good morning to our speakers here in Canada. I will first give a quick introduction in German and later on we will switch to English for our speakers and the rest of the webinar. Mein Name ist Carolina Klemm, ich bin die stellvertretende Wirtschaftsdelegierte hier im Außenwirtschaftscenter in Toronto und gemeinsam mit unserem Team begleiten wir Sie bei Ihren Exportvorhaben auf dem kanadischen Markt. Da sich zum Ende des Monats, genau am 21.10., einige grundlegende Veränderungen in der Abwicklung von Importen auftun werden, widmen wir uns in der kommenden Stunde dem CARM-System. CARM steht dabei für CBSA, das ist die Canadian Border Service Agency, Assessment and Revenue Management. Was genau da dahinter steckt, erklären Ihnen unsere beiden Experten, die ich in Kürze vorstellen darf. Einen kurzen Blick jetzt noch auf die Agenda. Nach ein paar kurzen einführenden Worten meinerseits folgen unsere beiden Experten Penny Moulton und Lars Nielsen. Sollten während des Webinars und während der Präsentation schon Fragen aufkommen, bitten wir Sie gerne, diese in den Chats zu schreiben, gerne auch auf Englisch und adressiert an eine Person, sodass wir diese dann effizient zuordnen können. Vielen Dank. Nun noch ein paar Housekeeping Rules. Dieses Webinar wird aufgezeichnet und Sie finden es im Nachgang auf unserem YouTube-Channel veröffentlicht. Die Präsentationen und den Link zur Aufzeichnung erhalten Sie dann per Mail zugeschickt. Bitte sorgen Sie dafür, dass Ihr Mikrofon und Ihre Kamera, wenn das nicht ohnehin schon geschehen ist, während des gesamten Webinars deaktiviert sind. Bei Fragen, wie gesagt, gerne die Chat-Funktion verwenden. Sollten wir nicht dazu kommen, alle Fragen zu beantworten, machen wir dies gerne im Nachgang auch schriftlich per E-Mail. Sie können Ihre Fragen auch im Nachgang immer an toronto@wko.at schicken. Vorab möchte ich nun einen kurzen Einblick zu den aktuellen wirtschaftlichen Kennzahlen geben. Auf dieser Grafik sehen Sie die österreich-kanadischen Handelsbeziehungen, besonders seit dem Inkrafttreten des CETA-Handelsabkommens im Jahr 2017 illustriert. Die österreichischen Warenexporte nach Kanada in den ersten 6 Monaten 2024 beliefen sich auf rund 833 Millionen Euro, was ein Minus von ca. 8,5% bedeutet. Bei den Dienstleistungsexporten verzeichnete Österreich im gleichen Zeitraum ein Plus von 10,4% auf 180 Millionen Euro. Bei den Importen ist man im ersten Halbjahr 2024 im Vergleich zur Vorjahresperiode mit einem Minus von 36,5% auf 269 Millionen Euro zurückgefallen. Hauptverantwortlich dafür ist der Importrückgang von Luftfahrzeugen. Die Dienstleistungsimporte verzeichnen hingegen ein leichtes Plus von 4,7% auf 179 Millionen Euro. All dies führt dennoch zu einem positiven Handelsbilanzüberschuss im ersten Halbjahr. Hier noch ein Blick auf unsere stärksten Exportgüter. Diese sind laut Statistik Austria besonders Metallwaren und im Vergleich zur Vorjahresperiode sind diese um fast 26% gestiegen. Gleiches mit medizinischen und pharmazeutischen Produkten, welche um rund 42% gestiegen sind. Exporte von Messprüf- und Kontrollgeräten sind sogar um 88,5% gestiegen. Generell sind es Kraftmaschinen, Ausrüstung, Arbeitsmaschinen, Medizin- und Pharmaprodukte, genauso wie Eisen, Stahl, Beförderungsmittel und andere Metallwaren, die die größten Exportwarengruppen ausmachen. That being said, let me switch to English and open the floor to our speakers. Penny Moulton will kick off the expert presentation sessions, and let me give you a short introduction into Penny's experience. Penny Moulton is the Director of Trade Management Services and Trade Compliance at UPS Supply Chain Solutions. She works with multinational companies and stakeholders to assist them in navigating Canadian importing legislation. Penny is also responsible for CARM. She holds a BBA from Yorkville University, including CCLP, CCS, and CTCS designations. Penny is the Controlled Goods Designated Official and has her professional brokerage license from CBSA. Penny, please share the screen. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Carolina. And we will move on to learning about CARM. And welcome, everyone. And so glad that you were able to join. Right. So we're going to talk about CARM's CBSA assessment and revenue management. So this presentation is for informational purposes only. It does not constitute legal advice. Please consult with your own legal counsel for such advice. Do not rely on this information without performing your own research. So we're going to talk a little bit about a customs broker. We'll talk about CARM, the final countdown, which is going on right now, what is changing. We'll talk about the billing cycles and what impacts that has to you as the importer of record into Canada. And we'll talk about the transaction history and statement summary. I'll just go through that so you understand what that is. And we'll talk about payments, how payments are going to be made moving forward. So from a customs broker standpoint, you would appoint a customs broker and you would sign a general agency agreement, sometimes known as a power of attorney. But you want to get a customs broker that's knowledgeable with CBSA rules and regulations, including partner government agencies such as CFIA. So if any of you, for example, are shipping food stuff to Canada, it would need to be approved by Canadian Food Inspection Agency. So you want to make sure that when you're choosing a customs broker that they would have that knowledge. And CFIA is just one example, depending on the commodity and goods being shipped. The customs broker would then set up the account and complete the customs entries with CBSA. But ensure ethics, compliance, and anti-corruption training is top of mind for the customs broker that you choose. So you're wondering if CARM applies to you. It does impact all commercial importers into Canada. So if you're simply exporting goods to Canada and another company is responsible for the payment of the duties and taxes to the Canadian government, then CARM would not apply to you. But if you're a non-resident importer into Canada, CARM would apply to you. Or a resident importer, you've got a location in Canada as well, then you would be responsible for the payment of the duties and taxes, and therefore CARM would be applicable to you as an importer into Canada. And when you, in terms of DDU, if you look at delivered duty unpaid, that would be the Incoterm potentially where it's cleared under the business number, the responsible party for posting security. So what is CARM? It's not a UPS, something we put in place. It's a Canadian government initiative, and it allows clients to register and view their accounts through a secure self-service portal. So if you're not registered in CARM, I'll get into that in a little bit further detail, but how you can do that. And it's mandatory for all commercial importers into Canada, including NRIs. And it's an electronic payment option, so you would pay your duties and taxes directly to CBSA, and it's client-based accounting through business numbers, which aims at improving information flow between CBSA and the clients. And really, the whole thing is going to transform how CBSA manages, collects money. They're able to use AI to look at your transactions, see if they want to further audit or anything like that. But that's going to be what CARM will allow CBSA to do. So from all commercial importers will have and use their business number. You'll create a user account and link it in the portal. And commercial importers must register in CARM before go live. Again, I'll talk through that a little bit further. And then once you're registered, you would delegate authority to your customs broker that would conduct business on your behalf. The customs broker needs to have the delegated authority, or they cannot close the final accounting for the entry. So this is just a screen print of what the portal looks like when you're in there, but you would log in. You can change the language, but to French or English. So the CARM Client Portal functionalities, you set up your portal, manage the access of employees. So if you're registered in the portal and you have employees that would need to have access to it, maybe they're making the payments to CBSA electronically, then they would need to have access. If you're the person that registers, you would be the business account manager. So you can manage your payment options in the portal. You can see all the information about if you have more than one business number with a different RM. You can see the financial information. And if you're importing goods into Canada and you're not really sure of the tariff classification, and you don't want, customs to come back 4 years later and say, oh, you owe duty on these goods for the last 4 years, you can actually get a ruling in advance. And you can go through your customs broker to get that for you. But that way it gives you that feeling that, it is the correct tariff classification, and that is what you would use for goods coming into Canada. So it's October 21st is the go live date. And as we all know, that's not very far away. Whoops. So right now, the cutover period is happening. And that's from October the 4th to the 21st. And so what that means is you cannot get into CARM during this time. And so if you're not registered and you have shipments, you'll have to wait till the cutover period is over before you can actually register in CARM. The bonds will be electronic. And if you are registered, customs are going to give 180 days release prior to payment without a bond. I know that sounds crazy, but that is exactly what they're doing. So that means that you won't need to get a bond until after CARM is live and electronic bonds are ready. CARM will go live on October the 21st, 2024. All right. So if you haven't made a test payment, you could make one once CARM is up on October the 21st. Shipments will still be released into Canada as usual. So we're, as a customs broker, continuing to release the shipments. They're just not accounted for until after October 21st. If there's any late accounting penalties, they will be automatically waived by CBSA. Payments cannot be made right now. The first statement of account will be issued on October the 25th. And there are different options for making a payment. You can use a pre-authorized debit. You can use a credit or debit card up to $5,000, but it's up to $5,000 per transaction. So what that means is if you owe, say, $9,500, you could make one payment today for $5,000 and then another payment tomorrow for $4,000. So the adjustment process under Release 2 Go Live, the CAD is submitted. So it's known as a B3 today, and it's moving to a CAD, which is a commercial accounting document. And then once that's submitted, it's you're allowed to make any corrections before the payment due date. So say, for example, that there was duty applicable and then you got a certificate of origin making it duty free. Your customs broker could then do a correction so that you wouldn't have to pay that duty at the end of the month. If it's after the fact, then it would be during what's called the adjustment period, but corrections can be made anytime for those particular shipments. And I just use the example of one with duty on it. So the release prior to payment, RPP, program entitles importers to obtain the release of goods from the CBSA before paying duties and taxes. And today you use your customs broker generally to maybe you pay them for the duties and taxes or you pay them in advance. Moving forward, that will no longer be on the broker security, so brokers won't be paying any longer the duties and taxes on your behalf. Some brokers, you can set something up where they would continue to bill you, but that's something between you and your customs broker that you could potentially set up. Importers that are not RPP participants would continue to have the option to pay full duties at the time of release and at the port of entry. But certainly being in Austria and shipping to Canada, you're not going to be at the port to be able to pay for the duties and taxes for the goods coming into Canada. All right. So the financial security options for RPP participants, you can do a deposit, and that's 100% of whatever the duties and taxes are. So you would put that on account in the portal. And then when the payment is due, you would actually have to make that payment separately. The deposit would sit on the account to allow you to get your goods released into Canada without a bond. That would be essentially the financial security. But if you're registered now and the goods are coming into Canada, you don't actually have to get any kind of a bond or anything like that until the spring of 2025. The electronic bonds are not available yet, but once they're available, it will be obviously you'll be able to get your bond, and you can usually get your bond through your service provider as well. A written security agreement from a financial provider, for example, a bank, and CARM will facilitate the process for capturing the written security via the CARM Client Portal or via an application API. Right, the RPP program. Say you get a bond, you can get a bond for $5,000 is the minimum, up to $10 million. So customs will send a notification or an alert in the portal saying, you're getting close to your payment when it's at 75%. But you can monitor that. So you may need to get your bond increased depending on the size of shipments that you have coming in. But you can see your financial security. You'll be able to see that in the portal. Once the portal is back up. But one thing I want to point out here is that if you get a notification, but you're going to be making a payment in a couple of days, you don't have to do anything about it. You wait till the next month and see if you've got the same situation, and then maybe you would need to increase your bond. But like I said, you will not need a bond until CARM release prior to payment is over, which is probably going to be in the spring of 2025. So we'll talk a little bit about billing cycle. I know this is a very busy slide, but really essentially what I wanted to show is regardless of how you're importing goods into Canada, most of your goods would fall under the regular commercial stream or the CLVS. So the payment is always due 10 weekdays after the 17th of month 2. And the correction period is from the CAD submission date to the payment due date. And the adjustment period is, like I said earlier, from the payment period until after the payment due date onward. So just to give you an example, if you have a shipment come into Canada, it gets released on the 19th. The CAD would be due on the 26th. The SOA would come out on the 25th. This SOA always comes out on the 25th. And then in this example, the payment is due on the 31st. If you're making payments to CBSA, you just want to make sure, depending on how long it would take your bank to make the payment to CBSA, or what option you're using, you want to make sure that you're giving enough time for that payment to be with CBSA by the time that it's due. So we'll talk about transaction history and statement summary. So this is, again, a screen print of the portal, which you'll be able to get into after October 21st. But you can see a live history of the transactions can be viewed under the transaction history. The statement of account, the monthly summary of your business activities with the CBSA, and the top right there, you can see the importer company. So that's what would come up when you logged into the portal. And you can see, you'll be able to see your commercial accounting documents, which will be the transactions for the shipments that have cleared, but there will be no customs paperwork with it. Also, the portal is not a means of record keeping. So you would need to download the commercial accounting documents or the CADs and keep them on file, and according to whatever record keeping that you have set up with CBSA, just make sure that you have those records with the documents. So the statement summary, you can see this is what it does. It combines multiple transaction types and payment due dates into one statement. So you can see it's got the multiple lists, and it contains payments made, interest owing, credits on account, disbursements issued, CAD corrections, and adjustments. And then if you look, say you want to get the transaction history report, it will provide account balances, include all open debit and credits. Payable balances will include open debits and credits based on the release date and the billing accounting periods. And payable balances, so it's going to show what's payable, but you want to make sure if there's a big correction going through or anything like that, that you're aware of that when you're making the payment. Okay, so we talked about the RPP, and that's the deferred payment. So that means your shipment will come into Canada, get released, get delivered, maybe get sold before you actually have to pay the duties and taxes. But that way, the duties and taxes will be paid. As I explained earlier, it's always 10 weekdays after the 17th of each month is when it's due. CBSA sometimes publishes exceptions. For example, let's say there's a holiday following on the payment due date. They might push the payment due date to the following day, but those can be found on the CBSA website. And importers have the option to pay via online banking, debit or credit card, EDI, or pre-authorized debit. So similar to, for example, you were paying your Visa online. It can be done that way. And like I said, the debit or credit card is actually $4,999.99 per transaction. In the bottom part there where it says you should consult with your customs broker before setting up the pad, we're into the launch now, October 21st. So customs brokers should no longer be billing you the duties and taxes for the goods. They should automatically be in the portal and you have to make the payments for them, unless you've arranged something else with CBSA or with your customs broker. So if you decide that you want to make a payment online via the CARM Client Portal, like I said, it's $4,999.99. Online banking is unlimited. EDI is unlimited, or pre-authorized debit is up to $100 million. So I would advise, if that's how you're going to be making a payment through your bank, you need to find out how many days it takes before it's actually going to show up as being paid by CBSA. So payment by credit card, you enter the amount you'd like to pay, make a payment, and then again, you just make the payment online. And as far as consulting with your service provider, they've already stopped billing you for the duties and taxes on the shipments coming in. Or if you're going to be new, then you could work that out with your customs broker when you're shipping the goods. All right, so payment by pre-authorized debit agreement allows you to set up monthly pre-authorized deductions from your bank account. So it would be automatic. and they would automatically take the funds out of your account. So these are the banks right now that CBSA work with. So a lot of them are Canadian or US banks, but some of them are certainly global. So if you're dealing with one of these banks, you can do online banking through this list. Customs are saying they are in the process of updating this list. So again, that would be available on the CBSA website. So when you make a payment directly to CBSA, make sure you use your business number so they apply it to your account correctly. And depending on how your bank is set up, it could be under CBSA duties, taxes, fees, CBSA duty, taxes, and fees, etc. There's different ways that it would show when you're making that payment. So if you haven't registered now, you'll have to do that after the 21st. Delegate access to your service provider. Access your payment options, make a test payment. And if you have any questions, you could reach out to carminfo@ups.com and we can walk you through some of those, or you can reach out to your own service provider. And that is it for me for now until the questions, but I'm going to turn it over to Lars.
Thank you so much, Penny. Let me quickly introduce our second speaker today. Lars Nielsen is a country manager for Gebrüder Weiss in Toronto, Canada. He brings a lot of experience to the table when it comes to logistics and supply chains, as he previously worked with Cargolution in the capacity of managing director, as well as a senator international, and prior to that as vice president at Ruling Canada. We're excited for your input, Lars. Please go ahead and share your screen.
First of all, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon to the audience from in the European continent, mainly Austria. Pleasure to be here, and thank you for the introduction, Carolina. Before I share any screen, I just want to stress out, I think it was quite detailed what Penny did presented. I don't think there's directly anything for me to go in and just show you exactly the same. So I think it's fair to say in a nutshell that yeah, there's some changes happening here in Canada. It's quite substantial in terms of the customs, how things going to work. But this is indirectly, this is nothing brand new. As people dealing with Canada, this initiative was initiated more than 2.5 years ago as a voluntary program by, again, obviously by CBSA to get people accustomed, to get people used. Over the last 2.5 years, there was set various deadlines for the go live day, and there was a few times, as I recall, it was 3 or 4 times it was postponed. And now the final go live date is, as Penny indicated, as well as the presentation indicated, is on October 21st, which is this coming Monday. So I hope at this given point of time that the import of Canada, if you guys do act as that, remember there's different terminology. What is an importer of record, as Penny indicated, is a person in Canada who is responsible for the taxes and duties coming into Canada. The Canadian government assesses the importer of record as being the person who technically holds ownership to the goods. There's something you guys as exporters to Canada, of course, need to be aware of, and you do your dealings with your Canadian buyer or third-party buyer, whatever they are. But anyway, when you're shipping products into Canada, who is actually importer of record as in terms of customs, in terms of ownership upon arrival, whoever is responsible and paying the tax and duties according to the Canadian government is the owner of the goods. So keep that in mind. But I hope by far the majority of you guys already now, in conjunction with your current custom brokers, have set yourselves up in the CARM portal, in the account, get your account created. Hopefully at this time of day, since it's only, well, less than a week away, the go live date, hopefully the time of day you already have posted your payment, you got your surety bond in place. Some people do have that, some people do not. The good thing is, in case you do not have that, but if you have registered here before the did the cutoff time, it was October the 4th. If you had registered before, you're not yet found a provider to post your bond, you still have that grace period of 180 days, sorry, which is, according to the calendar, is the 19th of April next year. So prior to that date, you have the time to come up with post payment or post serenity bond to the Canadian government. So in a nutshell, I think it was detailed the way Penny did present it. It's not really, of course, there is changes. I'll be lying saying there's not changes, but you already set up. It's sort of a one-time setup, and once things are set up, then you'll get your monthly statement from the CBSA. Of course, you have to make sure you have, if you don't have a bond in place, that you do have sufficient funds posted against, that you're able to transfer those accounts. Remember what's sitting on your account as if you do go the deposit way and not post a bond up to whatever the max can be up to, I believe it's $100 million. But if you do not have that, you have to make sure that your need is covered. So the minimum deposit that can be posted is 5,000 Canadian dollars. That amount sits there sort of just as a guarantee. That's how the government looks at it. So look at that, make sure you have money in place. So for argument's sake, let's say you import an average for $40,000 a month. Yes, the government will require that you do post a larger bond than the minimum 5,000. Again, you do get your monthly statement. It's normally sent out on the 25th every month. You settle, and pretty much business as usual. So how does that differ directly from how you're doing it today? Well, most likely, if you are depending on the status, what you're doing right now, you can already at this given basis, you could have been allowed to settle directly and deal directly with the Canadian government, pay them directly. But most of you guys will probably have gone through a custom broker. You can work with a single broker, or you can work with multiple custom brokers. That's something that I want to quickly just touch base on too. With this new CARM initiative, you're not limited to go into your portal and what we call it, delegate authority to a single party. You can delegate and work with whatever amount of custom brokers you want to work with. There's no limits to that, but you have to, as the DC contact of your portal, will have to delegate that authority to the specific custom brokerage company. In Canada, there's hundreds of custom brokers you can pick and choose from, and it's obviously up to you with your business relationships you have with your custom brokers, with your freight forwarders, your direct carriers, to make sure that that's in order. And I got to say, that's not a limit that you can only work with one, but you can work with multiples if you do desire. Just to remember to go in and delegate the authority to each of those parties, so they're allowed to custom clear on your behalf. For that process to happen, again, it's all done online. If you do want to down the road to change your custom broker, again, you can go in and you can terminate whatever company you're listed in there already, and you can go in and authorize a new one, delegate authority to a new one. Each custom broker will still carry on with the current processes and normally ask you to sign a POA, power of attorney, technically for the custom broker, allowing to acting and do business on your behalf. So that part of the business has not changed. So it mainly comes down to the big change, of course, it is, which I'm sure the majority of you guys are doing right now, is that you normally ship over to Canada, air freight, ocean freight, coming into the country, or trucking up from the United States, railing in from the United States. Anything means of mode coming into Canada, and the custom broker is normally custom clearing, and they send you the invoice and you pay as per your whatever agreed upon credit terms. So that's the main change for this program, is that now no longer a custom broker or any other third party can pay on your behalf. You, as the importer of record, as either being a domestic Canadian outfit or what we call a non-resident importer, you do have similar authority, similar regulation, the same similar process. You'll need to obtain a Canadian business number to do that, and tax IDs and all that. But the importer of record is in charge of the brokerage, and the Canadian government will be sending our taxes and duties directly to that party. That, I think, is the main difference and the main change that people need to be aware of. Coming the 21st, the custom broker can no longer go in on your behalf and settle your account and just bill you, and you settle with them accordingly. There is many similarities of you guys, but I'm sure you already work with the United States. I find the system is, I wouldn't say it's a copycat, but of course there is similarities in it. And again, it's always, I can imagine, a little bit sometimes complicated and figure out, okay, how does this work? What is this all about? And in general, the step-by-step in it, we go in and have a look in the CARM portal. There's a lot of great questions. There's a lot of great guidance how to do it. Of course, you can also consult with your custom broker, and I'm sure they'll be more than happy and willing to help get you set up in the initial process. Let me just go in here. I did create a little bit of a sort of a share the screen thing. It's what I sort of expected to with me to do a similar presentation, but I say I don't need to copy what Penny already did. So I think at this stage we might as well, if anybody have any questions or we want to go in and ask some frequently asked questions, I guess it's probably pretty much more that what the audience would like to know. I guess I will be happy to answer questions. So I'm sure we'll Penny. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much where we are. Like it's bottom line is you have to create your portal. If that's not done, it's down right now till the 21st, and you can start doing it again. If you already have created your account and you have not yet posted payment guarantees, you do have a grace period of 180 days, which means April 19th at the current. If that's going to be changed, who knows? But at the moment, the deadline for you to go in and post and guarantee payment is April 19th, 2025. So I think we should sort of leave the forum. If anybody have any questions, I would be happy to answer if I can, and I'm sure so will Penny.
Thank you so much. There are a couple of questions in the chat already. I will just read them out loud and address them. I think, Penny, there are a few for you. There was one you already answered. I might read it again for everyone to hear. Maybe someone oversaw what was there in the chat. It says, if you have a customs broker that releases goods for you in Canada, do you still have to register in CARM?
And yes, your customs broker will get the shipments released for you, but because you're responsible to pay the duties and taxes directly to CBSA, then you will need to register in CARM so that you're able to do that. Also, so that your customs broker can account for the duties and taxes on your shipment. Unless you're registered and delegated access to your customs broker, they won't be able to account for it. They'll only be able to release the goods. And I'll just, as a side note, the reason they won't, they can release the goods is because CBSA have always said that CARM will not impact release of goods. So therefore, they want to keep the releases going, even if somebody's not registered or has not delegated access.
Thank you. Then there's another question. When we ship via courier or on the basis DDP, do we also have to register on CARM? And also one, I think maybe we can have both at the same time. Do we also have to use CARM if we send the goods to Canada via our carrier?
So the carrier doesn't really matter. It's who is the importer of record and who is responsible for the payment of the duties and taxes. If you're normally getting a bill for the duties and taxes from your customs broker, then and you're the importer of record, so your business number is being used to clear those goods into Canada, then you would need to register in CARM and delegate access. If it's delivered duty paid, that would mean that you would need to deliver the goods as duty paid, so therefore you would need to register in CARM.
And also the other question on that, if the client is liable for paying all the import duties and taxes, I assume we're not having the obligation to register for CARM. For example, Incoterms, DDU, or DAP without all local customs duties and taxes.
Go ahead, Lars.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I can answer that one. That's what I tried quickly to get in on before. it's very much come down to how you work with, obviously not just Canada, but anywhere in the world, people normally deal in Incoterms. Incoterms determine who is responsible for in this case, customs formality, customs clearance, taxes, and duties. As I mentioned before, the Canadian government review this as being who is the importer of record. The importer of record is a person, according to the Canadian government, that has the ownership of the goods once the goods arrive into Canada. So if you are sitting in Vienna, you ship on CIF, Toronto, or DAP, Mississauga, whatever it could be, and go to Dorpont in Canada, but you are not listed as, you're not take charge of the customs formalities and act as a Canadian importer of record, you do not have to register anything with CARM. CARM is only to do, and you only need to register in CARM if you are a Canadian importer of record, if you do take responsibility of paying taxes and duties. And that, again, doesn't matter in terms of shipments. It doesn't matter if it's air freight, ocean freight, courier, or how it comes into the country. It's based on the Incoterms, and the person who needs to register and set themselves up in CARM and guarantee as well as pay the taxes and duties is the importer of record, which can either be domestic in Canada, or it can be what we call an NRI, a non-resident importer, meaning you can be setting up in Austria and be an importer of record for Canada.
Thank you very much for clarifying. Maybe one question, you mentioned that already, but just to wrap it up once more, what happens if I have not registered on the portal by October 4th? Can I still import? Maybe Penny?
Yes. So if you are not registered, but you have shipments going in and you've got your customs broker, currently right now, October 16th, your shipment would get released, but they wouldn't be able to account for it. So on the 21st, you'll need to go in and register in CARM right away once it's up, so that your customs broker can account for the shipments and submit that information to CBSA.
Thank you so much. If there are no further questions, please keep in mind you can always write an email to toronto@wko.at, ask any questions that might have come up, and we can also forward them to our speakers. We would be happy to assist you with any import matters that come up in the future. And thank you so much for your interest into our webinar. Thank you so much for our speakers for being here with us so early today. And have a nice rest of your day und schönen Abend nach Österreich. Vielen Dank.